Hey guys, Bike here, and I'm back again with another Last Epoch video. This one I am calling Monolith Progression Tips. So one thing I have been getting asked a lot is, how do I get to monoliths? When should I get to monolith? When should I go to monoliths? What is the ideal level? What is the fastest way to get to empowered monoliths? And the list goes on. So what I'm going to try and do is showcase what I do, if that makes sense. This is what I do, give you a few tips and tricks, and go from there. So with all that being said, if you like what I do here, possibly leave a like, possibly subscribe. I'm trying to get more beginner-friendly guides out there for you guys, as long as it's Sentinel, right? All right, let's go ahead and jump into the game. All right, here we are in game. So if you didn't know, this is when you can access monoliths, right when you get to the end of time. You can just run right over here and go through monoliths. Get your mastery first, right? Go up the stairs and talk to Gaspar. But the moment you get here, you can go over here. You can go straight to monoliths. Now, depending on how fast you're going, you're probably anywhere from level 15 to 22, right? I don't know if I would recommend it, but you can go straight into monoliths from right there. And the level of the area will be level 58. That is quite a tall task. And what most people typically want to do, let me see if I can show you. You want to unlock all of your idle slots, and you want to get all of your passive points. If you didn't know, you get, I believe, 99 passive points from leveling. You start level 1 by default. No, you get 98 points, and then you get 15 points from side quests. So if you don't know how to access your side quests, let's make sure my face isn't blocking it. Yes, you get 98 points from leveling, and then 15 passive points from the quests. So you can see right here, idle slot rewards 8, passive point rewards 15. Now, how to get those? You do side quests, and if you do it right, typically, at least when I'm playing, if there's a faster way, I haven't figured it out. Typically, by the time you get to Hioboria and you complete all the side quests here, you do like the Wingari Fortress, you do the little side quests around here. You go up to the Temple of Herat over here. You grab the Shattered Lance. I think it's the Shattered Lance. You come back down to Hioboria. You talk to some people. Boom, you should have enough, and then it's just a matter of going around and turning in your points to get the rest of your passive points and idle slots. For me, that is around level 45. So if this is a second character, I recommend that you don't take any dungeon shortcuts. If you didn't know, you can take a dungeon and it can create a shortcut to another timeline, right? You don't take any dungeon shortcuts except for the Temporal Sanctum, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So you meet Tree Boy, you get the Shattered Lance, you come back down here. For me, that's around level 45. You go turn in all your quests. You make sure you have all 15 passive point rewards and all of your idle slots. And then for me personally, I go to the monoliths. Now, if this is your first time playing this game, if this is the first time like you're going through the campaign, I recommend you play through the campaign. What do you get for playing through the campaign? Well, if you complete the final mission in the campaign, I'm not going to say what it is in case this is your first time. Well, you complete the final mission now. If you didn't know, the campaign is technically not finished, but that's a different story. Anyway, you complete the final mission. It brings you to a moment, and then you wind back up in the end of time, and then that's when the game prompts you to go into monoliths. But you complete the final mission, you get a +1 bonus to all of your attributes. So 1 strength, 1 dexterity, 1 vitality. Hey, 5 attribute points is nothing to scoff at. But for the most part, me personally, I just rather get on over to monoliths. So what I typically do, I play to the point where I have all my passive points, all my idle slots. I then hightail it over here to monoliths. So that's when you should start monoliths. Either on a second character, you start at level 45 like I do. That's my opinion, after you have all your idle slots and passive points, or after you finish the campaign. Now, I know there's people out there, what they'll do is they'll level to a point where their build is viable, just viable enough, then go to monoliths, knock some heads around, and then go back to the campaign later to get the rest of the points. You can do that, and if that's something you enjoy doing, by all means. But me personally, I enjoy the level 45 method. Okay, so you get back here, you go into monoliths, and what now? Well, you see this part where it says empowered? That's not there by default. By default, actually, I'm trying to remember. I think it just, if you don't have empowered yet, I think it just loads you right in. But if anything, they make you choose normal, right? You're not going to see this screen if you're playing this for the first time, right? So let's choose normal for the sake of it. So what is the optimal way to progress through this? How do you get corruption? Well, you can get corruption in normal monoliths, but I heavily suggest not doing that. I say go through here, fill up your progress bar, and you see how this has like a little pip right here? You see this little pip? Oh, and you fill up your progress bar by doing like these little missions right here, these little echoes. You see what that reward you're going to get? You're going to take a mod. You're gonna do this mission. You're going to take a modifier. Enemies deal 20% increased damage, and it's going to last for like one monolith, right? It's going to last for one echo. And you just, work your way down the web, and eventually you'll earn stability and XP and stuff and fill out these bars. So let's say you've done all that. You filled up all these bars. You got this final one unlocked, but you notice, hey, that's locked and that's locked. Well, I watched a streamer, right? I'm advocating for you guys here. I watched a streamer doing it, and when he got to this point, he was able to jump straight here. You can do that in empowered monoliths, but in regular monoliths, you got to do these little missions right here. So you got to do your first, second, and third mission. After that, you're free to go to the next monolith. So that brings us to our next point. What should you do? It's going to give you two paths, one to a level 62 timeline and one to a level 66 timeline. Which one should you choose? Well, if you have a build that you are familiar with, you know what's going on. The fact of the matter is, you're probably not watching this video. You already know what you're doing. But if you're just watching this video just because you want to support the content I'm putting out there, thank you very much. So if you are one of those players who already has a build, you know what you're doing, you're already gearing up, you're already blasting through stuff, I recommend you go up here through the Black Sun, right? I recommend you go up here through the Black Sun, because both of these islands unlock after you complete Fall of the Outcasts. And then both of these are locked. But what you can do is you do the Black Sun, then you can do Ending the Storm. And then what used to happen, if you played in beta, this changed to 1.0. If you played in beta, what used to happen is it would make you go all the way over here to Fall of the Empire. And then you would go Reign of Dragons, then you would do your last three timelines. So what happens now, though, is you go from Black Sun to Ending the Storm to Reign of Dragons. So you don't even have to do Fall of the Empire at all. And then you do your last three timelines. So what's going to happen here? Oh, actually, let's discuss some more. So should you go up this side? Like I said, if you already know what's going on, if you already feel confident, maybe you're following a build guide, this will be the most efficient way. Most content creators, myself included, typically say get into empowered monoliths as soon as possible. But sometimes your build isn't ready. There is no shame in going over here and getting a few extra levels. For me personally, when I'm doing a build, somewhere between level 70 and 80 is when I am completing the last of these timelines. Here's what's going to happen when you complete these last three, right? You're gonna I'm trying to make sure I'm finishing my previous thought. So, like I said, there is no shame. I think this is making sense. So, typically I'm between level 70 and 80 when I'm doing the last 3 timelines. And so what will happen is you complete the last 3 timelines, whichever of the last level 90 timeline you do first, that will be your first Harbinger. The Harbinger, after you defeat the boss, the Harbinger will pop out. It'll be like, surprise, mother. You can finish that sentence in your head. And then you fight the Harbinger, you kill the Harbinger, boom. You get teleported to the Shattered Road. Let me show you what it looks like. Here we are at the Shattered Road. Let me walk up here. This is kind of cool. You might have seen a few thumbnails of me just like, whoa, look at that, print screen, print screen. Yeah, anyway, this is the Shattered Road, and you talk to,
My name is Arenthia, and
you talk, she looks a little bit different when you talk to her. You talk to her, and she tells you, oh, go,
just set things right.
will she be quiet? She'll tell you, go fight the Harbingers. And fighting the Harbingers in the other timelines are pretty straightforward now. Essentially, all the timelines have empowered monoliths now. All of these have empowered level 100, right? It gives you the option. So you see how this normally, this is level 58, but if it's empowered, it's 100. It's the same thing. You no longer have a level for the monoliths. They are all level 100 now. They all have their corruption. Okay, so before I get too far ahead of myself, I did say we're going to talk about the Temporal Sanctum later. So let's kind of bring it back, because I'm about to start talking about empowered monoliths, but I don't want to get too far ahead. I mentioned you should go to the Temporal Sanctum at some point. So you don't finish the campaign. You just you go to monoliths. And I said at some point you're going to want to go back through the Temporal Sanctum. So here's how I do it. I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I was getting ahead of myself. Let's reel it back in. You know, send it out, reel it back in. So at some point when you're playing through your normal monos, you're hopefully sooner rather than later, you're going to get a key drop for the Temporal Sanctum. The moment you get that key, look at your level. If you're around level 60 plus, you should be fine. What you're going to do is you're going to use that key, and if you had done all your side quests properly, you will have the Temporal Sanctum unlocked by default. So in case you're not aware of how to unlock this, you do a side quest for the Temporal Sanctum. The side quest will end with you entering this building here. There's this dude. All right. You get smacked. You pick up this thing called the Sapphire Tablet. Now, what I highly recommend you do is you go into the Temporal Sanctum here and unlock the waypoint. Right? I already have it unlocked. I didn't even know it was a possibility to pick up the Sapphire Tablet again. So you have this unlocked, you're good to go. So when you're in normal monos and you're progressing and you're killing stuff, blah, 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 and you get that Temporal Sanctum. So what you're going to do is you're going to teleport over here, and you're going to go in and you are going to fight the boss. When you go up to the door, you're going to have to put in a key. Hold up. Keys, keys, keys. You have to put in a key, and option 1 will be available. All the enemies will be level 55. They're going to tell you about the Eternity Cache. We call it slamming. It's how you can make legendary items. And that's a different guide. But essentially, what you're going to do is when you kill the boss, Julra, you get through to the other side. Actually, let me show you. There's going to be a cut right now. All right, welcome back. So here we are. We've just defeated the boss. You're going to go here to this room. Here's going to be the box that we talk about for slamming, right? What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure you're in this era, right? You're going to make sure everything's all gold and glittery. Click on the box. You don't have to put anything in there. You see those bars? Those bars came down. What you do is you walk through here. Well, and essentially, you are now in... I don't think you can go back this way, right? Yeah, you can't go back this way. You are now in the final... well, you are now in Act 9. You were able to skip ahead using the Temporal Sanctum. And now you can... you'll have to walk around. You'll have to talk to a dude named Zarek, all that. Now you can get to the upper district where you can join either the Bazaar or the Observatory. So let's go ahead and jump back into Monoliths where I can talk about empowered Monoliths now. All right, here we are. That was our little, foray into the Temporal Sanctum. So you've done the Temporal Sanctum. You got your stuff. And you go through the timelines. You've now unlocked empowered timelines. Well, here's the good news. Remember these timelines I talked about before that we didn't unlock, assuming you went up this side of the tree, right? They're all unlocked now. You can now go and do them, right? So you can go at whatever pace you want to do, but here's a tip. Depending on your build, here's how I typically do this. To unlock... to complete all the Harbingers and go to Aberoth, or at least have a shot at him, you have to complete... I want to make sure I say this correctly. You have to beat 10 Harbingers on scaling corruption between 100 and 300. You defeated your first one for free, so to speak, at level 90. You're now starting with Harbinger number 2. So remember I said choose whichever one you want to be your last and final Harbinger, right? In the level, not final Harbinger, but your first Harbinger fight, depending on which one you finish first. I typically do the last Ruin because I hate that boss, and you guys will probably find out soon if you're playing for the first time, and you guys have fun with that. It's not impossible. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. There's guides out there. This is not what that video is about. So, assuming you did the last Ruin first, what should you do now? What timeline should you go through? Because the first boss you got to fight is at 100 corruption. And let me show you something. Let's see. I'm pretty sure, yeah. So this timeline, I already have 525 corruption. All well and good. And empowered monoliths, all monoliths start with a base 100 corruption. And guess what? That's the corruption you have to be to fight your first Harbinger. So here's what you do. You go through, you fill up the stability bar, you go straight to the boss, you fight the boss, boom, you fight the Harbinger after that. There you go. Which one should you do first? All right, that's going to be completely up to you. If you're doing melee, I recommend you do Spirits of Fire. After that, you might want to do Ending the Storm. You're going to have to do that at 125 corruption. After that, do the Age of Winter, thereabouts. You got to do that at 150 corruption. And then I would say do Blood, Frost, and Death and the Stolen Lance, because those are the Lady Harbingers. This isn't a Harbinger guide. Like I said, you'll figure out what is the best way, but you got to go through there, and you will eventually unlock 300. You'll make your way up to 300 corruption, and you will have defeated all the Harbingers. This is not a Harbinger guide. I just wanted to give a few pointers. Okay, let's talk about empowered monoliths and corruption. How do you build corruption? I've gotten this question. People are thinking that you just got to keep fighting the boss. People think, yeah, this is 1,000 corruption, right? This is insane. People are thinking you just got to fight this timeline boss, and you'll unlock higher corruption. No. What you do... Well, actually, let me go to my main timeline over here. I love the Black Sun. All right. So, what you do is you fight through here. You fight through, you fill up the bar, but what you're trying to do is get out from this starting point. You see the timeline instability. You're trying to make your way out. These can just branch out for a while. Eventually, you'll run into these little Dorito platforms. When you go here to this little Dorito platform, I'm going to showcase it. I'm not going to actually do it. So when you go here to this little Dorito platform, you're going to fight something called a Shade of Orbis. Now, you can fight Orbis in your normal monoliths, but corruption there is capped at 50. I recommend holding off. Wow, the game's going insane with the music. Hold up. Hey, L, I get it. It's okay, cool. So you can fight Orbis in your normal monoliths, but I would not recommend it. I would recommend going through, unlocking your empowered monoliths, and then fighting Orbis there to upgrade your corruption. Here's another tip. Let's say you've gone too far. You've gotten too much corruption, right? Let's say you've gotten too much corruption. Well, you can lower corruption with this little island called the Sanctuary of Etera. It spawns by this starting point all the time, right? Every time you go up, unless you're at 100 corruption, then you can't lower it anymore. All right. A couple tips. What is the best way to build corruption? The best way is to push out away from the starting point and then fight one of these little Dorito islands way out far. And while you're doing that, every time you fill this bar to right around here, you fight the boss. You're going to gain these things called Gazes of Orbis. Each Gaze of Orbis gives you plus 12 to your corruption when you defeat Orbis. This is a great way to stack it. I think you can only do 4 stacks at a time when you're doing this. They changed this system. It used to be if you died, you would lose all your stacks of Gaze of Orbis if you died to Orbis. Now, if you die to Orbis, you lose 1. Building corruption's a lot easier. So hopefully that tip helps you out. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else I'm forgetting? One last thing to kind of circle back to the Harbinger thing. Remember I said you have to be in these timelines to remember I said to complete timelines in order, and you got to be at a certain corruption in each timeline. What I recommend doing is picking a timeline and just farming that timeline till you're at like 350 corruption, right? And then you go back to these other timelines where you got to fight the boss in the order that you want. You got to fight the Harbingers in the order that you want, and use these little glyphs here in the game called Glyphs of Envy. Essentially, let me show this off to you real quick. Essentially, when you use a Glyph of Envy. So you saw me do some stuff here in the Black Sun timeline. Use a Glyph of Envy on an affix, any affix. And what it's going to do is going to burn the glyph, and then it's going to sink a bunch of stability into the last empowered timeline you did. You see that? It went up. So the idea is if you got to fight the boss to get the Harbinger, you can use the Glyphs of Envy to power up the boss and fight the Harbinger. Or what you should probably do, if you've done 300 corruption in one timeline, there's a catch-up mechanic. You may notice there's this little idolin floating next to the starting point. The reason why is they've read my other timelines and seen, oh, you're at X number of time corruption in that other timeline. You don't need to be here at 100 corruption. Just fight Orbis right here, and we'll bump you up to within 90%. We'll do 90% of your other timeline. So that's what you do. You go farm one timeline. In my opinion, that's what I do. You go farm one timeline, bump up the corruption as high as you can stand there, go to the other timelines, complete when Echo, this little Dorito island, shows up. You complete that. You're now in an empowered corruption, an empowered timeline. You then do what we were doing with the Glyphs of Envy to increase the stability here, fight the final boss, fight this boss, kill the Harbinger, move on to your next timeline. So hopefully that helps. I know this is a lot of information. It's a bit of an info dump, but thank you so much if you made it all the way to the end. Consider liking and possibly subscribing. I'm trying to get more beginner tips out there for you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for watching. You guys take care.